to purge this spreading tyranny right now sees no bounds. And it's an amazing thing to see other so-called media outlets trying to squelch the free speech of we, the people, of people with whom they disagree, and with other networks or outlets. It's absolutely shocking. So free speech only applies to those who advance a liberal cause. Free speech only applies to the corporatists that run these newsrooms, not to the rest of us. You've probably seen some of this, but you haven't seen enough of this. This is a clip just a day or so ago. Reliable sources, which of course are unreliable. It's Brian Stelter. Brian Stelter has become a radicalized, pusillanimous little fella who's on CNN every Sunday with a phony show. And he brings guests on who are mouthpieces for his agenda. He's a hard left Democrat, just like everyone else at CNN who has a significant hosting or other position there. So let's take a look at this. Go.
Will there ever be a solution, a real, clear, full solution to this information crisis that has been perpetuated, in my view, by platforms like...
So now we have an information crisis. We have propagandists on CNN. You know, this, I do feel your pain. It is so damn frustrating to listen to this stuff, where we have these frauds, these Democrats, these leftists, who just keep spewing their propaganda, and then they turn around and talk about an information crisis. And it's only getting worse. It's only getting worse. Go.
I think we got to do a couple things. One, there needs to be an intentional work by the social media companies collaborating together to work on violent extremism in the same way they worked.
All right, hold on a second. This guy's a former Google guy. And so you got to work on violent extremism, domestic violent extremism, the same way you worked on ISIS. Well, then they're going to have a ball, because the way the left worked with ISIS in the Obama administration is ISIS created this massive caliphate, didn't they? So that's to compare people in this country to ISIS. It's incredible. And they noticed they didn't have this discussion anytime during the summer when all the rioting and violence was occurring. So they're absolute frauds, all of them. Go.
Started at Facebook in 2015, the number one challenge from a content perspective was the abuse of social media by the Islamic State. And there was a collaboration between the tech companies and between the tech companies and law enforcement to make it impossible for them to use the internet to recruit and radicalize mostly young Muslim men at the time around the world. Now we're talking about domestic audience in the United States. And the challenge is going to be partially that, ISIS did not have a domestic constituency in the United States Congress, but there is over half of the Republicans in Congress voted to overturn.
All right, stop. First of all, correction, he was with Facebook. Half of the Republicans in Congress voted to overturn the election. And this is what I mean when they accuse Trump of inciting an insurrection. Half the Republicans in Congress voted challenging the count of the electors because of what the Democrats did in the key battleground states, especially Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, and Michigan, and what the lawsuit and the resulting Republicans did in Georgia. So what they're saying is challenging that election resulted in the violence. For 4 years, Russia collusion. For 4 years, impeachment. For 4 years, criminal investigation. For 4 years, a coup against the president. For 4 years, using the most powerful instrumentalities of the federal government to try and stop Trump from being president and then to try and take him out. And this is what we get, because there was a civil, constitutional vote in the House of Representatives where approximately 140 Republicans voted to challenge electors. That's what resulted in inciting an insurrection against the United States government. And this propaganda is repeated time and again. And to quote Joe Biden, it's Goebbels-esque. That is, the big lie that Goebbels preached in the Third Reich. Go ahead.
But there is over half of the Republicans in Congress voted to overturn the election. And there will be a continual political pressure on the companies to not take it seriously. So I think first, you have to focus on those violent extremists, and those companies have to be brave in that way. And second, we have to turn down the capability of these conservative influencers to reach these huge audiences.
I see. So it's the conservative influencers now. Now notice the trick there. So insurrection, violence, the conservative influencers. And I can tell you, just as one of these conservative influencers, the attacks from the Washington Post are increasing. the effort to suggest that conservative influencers incited an insurrection, the pressure they're trying to put on these big corporations to silence so many of us, because many of these corporations, if not all of them, are run by Democrats or liberals, or a majority of them in their boardrooms are liberals. That is exactly what's going on here. So this is thuggery. This is totalitarian. This is a wide leap to suggest that all that violence that occurred was stirred up by Trump, was stirred up by us. It's really disgusting what they're doing here. Meanwhile, they distinguish what took place all summer long from what took place just a few weeks ago. It's unbelievable. Go ahead.
Are people on YouTube, for example, that have a larger audience than daytime CNN, and they are extremely radical and pushing extremely radical views. And so it's up to the Facebooks and YouTubes in particular to think about whether or not they want to be effectively cable network.
You see the ambiguity here. This is really the problem. I interviewed the CEO of Parler on my Fox show Sunday, and he specifically said, we don't promote violence wherever we can catch it. On our platform, we get rid of it. It's violating our terms. It's criminal in nature and so forth. But that's not what this guy's talking about. He's thrown out ISIS. He's thrown out effectively violence domestically. Then he talks about conservative influencers. And now he's talking about banning. And so they're painting with an extraordinarily broad brush in order to take down many of us, if not all of us, with this broad brush. Go ahead.
And then we're going to have to figure out the OANN and Newsmax problem. You know, that these companies have freedom of speech, but I'm not sure we need Verizon, AT&T, Comcast, and such to be.
All right, so Media Matters has been saying all along, let's go after these cable platforms. You know, the people who bring us cable TV, because without their providers, there is no cable TV. You know, Fox doesn't own Comcast and so forth, and Verizon and AT&T and all the rest that have their various devices coming into our homes so we can watch a variety of programs and so forth. Media Matters has been saying all along, okay, stop the boycotts, that is the end user, let's go after the front end. You know, it's like Amazon and the others trying to kill off Parler. Let's kill off Fox, let's kill off OAN, let's kill off Newsmax. Because, you know, these are conservative entities that are instigating insurrections against the country and violence against the country. I want you to keep the names of these people and these programs in mind, because when history is written, these are the fascists, in my view. Certainly intellectually, but they really want the diversity of viewpoints destroyed. And notice Stelter doesn't interrupt him once to challenge him.
For more, sign up for Levin TV.